This isn't a war, it's a slaughter. That's how one Russian commentator described it after 123 soldiers were killed assaulting a well-defended Ukrainian position in Donetsk. Look, it's hard to understand why Russia keeps throwing bodies against the Ukrainian drone wall, hoping for a different outcome, but we've at least got a few attempts at explaining it in today's video. The first, testing new technology. There's been a lot of talk about a new Russian APS, or active protection system, for their tanks. If that's the case, it maybe just didn't work here at all. The second, this is a tough area of the front, the Pokrovsk direction, and maybe it just requires bigger attacks for any movement at all. And the third, I'm personally in this camp, the lies are just piling up, the fake reports, and at some point, desperate measures are needed if any progress is going to be had at all. Now, this footage was released a couple days ago by the 1st Ukrainian National Guard Corps, Azov. This says on July 22nd, the invaders, with the forces of the 8th and 41st Armies, as well as the 90th Tank Division, attempted an offensive in the area of responsibility of the 1st Corps of the National Guard of Ukraine, Azov, using dozens of armored and light vehicles. For 4 hours, they attempted to enter the settlement in the area of Shakov. So this is in the Pokrovsk direction, kind of the general Dobropilia area. They say the enemy used strike UAVs Geran and Lancet to control the airspace. Also, a modern Russian multiple launch rocket system, Tornado S, which was used to support offensive operations, was destroyed. A couple interesting things there. First off, Lancet is a loitering munition, relatively short range, all things considered. You would expect that, and we have seen that used to support offensive operations. Kind of a drone use of fire support, if you will. Haven't really seen that from the Geran, which is the Russian version of the Iranian Shahed drone. So this has generally been used as a long-range strike munition. These are fired and can travel, at this point, past 2,000 kilometers from their launch point. We really haven't seen those used to support maneuver forces at the front. That might be a change. Now, in addition to that, I should note, and it didn't come up in the Azov statement here, but I did see that Russia was trying to jam Starlink terminals in this same sector of the front. That's something that Russia has the capability to do. We've not seen it used widespread or all too effective thus far, but it does seem like a number of different technologies and tactics were utilized trying to break through in this sector of the front. They say the forces of the 1st Corps of the National Guard of Ukraine, Azov, together with the attached units, blocked the advance of mechanized columns. Mine and explosive barriers were set up, and tactical aviation damaged bridge crossings. The Russians attempted to repair the crossings using pontoons during the offensive, but these were destroyed by tactical aviation. Listen, there's a handful of things that I would not want to do on a modern battlefield, especially one like this, completely covered in drones, and that's a bridging operation. So trying to put up something to move your forces across a known body of water. I mean, as you can see from this footage, like, it's spotted a long ways away. It's relatively easily destroyed and just, massacre. Now, Azov says as a result of this operation, 7 Russian tanks were destroyed, as well as 6 armored vehicles, 1 BM-21 Grad multiple launch rocket system, 1 Tornado S multiple launch rocket system, more on that in a second, 3 pieces of special equipment, and 47 pieces of light equipment, as well as 123 Russian soldiers killed and 29 wounded. That is a lot for a 4-hour period of time in one sector of the front. Now, the Tornado S, the best comparison there, I would say, is kind of the Russian version of the U.S. HIMARS. And it's surprising to see it so close to the front that it's kind of caught up in offensive operations. I usually don't have it that close. It's odd that it's able to be hit by Ukrainian drones in this same scenario. The reason you don't see that with HIMARS, like you see long-range strikes needed to destroy the HIMARS, is because they are set back from the front. They use that range as an advantage. I don't know exactly why a long-range precision munition like the Tornado S is being pushed this close to the front. That's a bit surprising for a number of reasons. Now, before getting into the Russian assessment here, overall, they're pretty upset, as you can imagine. A little different setup, as you can imagine. I'm in Sun Valley, Idaho for a couple days. Been here for a few more, heading back home later this week. Quick family vacation, and actually started finally bringing equipment with me. And a pretty big event here, so I thought it was worth diving into. But we've got my wife and daughter and I, and then we linked up with my parents and 2 of my 3 brothers and their spouses and their gaggle of kids. So it is absolute chaos here. This is kind of a way for me to, step aside, get to the hotel room for a little little peace and quiet. Now, officer at the front, Russian milblogger, talking about this recent attack, said, quote, "In an area of ubiquitous drones, sending mechanized columns into frontal assaults is not a tactic, but suicide. This is not a war. It's a slaughter orchestrated by incompetent fools from the Center Military District. On July 22nd, columns from the 8th and 41st Armies were turned into scrap metal in the Dobropilia direction. The new active protection system of the T-72 Useless. It didn't save anyone. It didn't work. July 2026, and our moron generals are still sending columns into attacks. Someone at the top will receive a medal for wiping out a company and a half. This is a disgrace. It's the height of incompetence, and those responsible for such decisions must be held accountable to the fullest extent. Now, here you see officer at the front cite I want to say it's called the Arena M. It's the active protection system rolled out by Russia, supposedly being utilized in this attack. My understanding, and I had a couple of you reach out following a previous video saying the reason that in the Phoenix video a couple days ago we saw a number of Russian T-72s without added armor protection is they were utilizing this new APS or active protection system that requires range. I mean, the way an APS works is it's not like armor where it just is trying to defend and protect the crew inside per se and like absorb the blow. An active protection system is designed to identify an incoming projectile. It's crazy technology, all things considered, and shoot it down before it hits in this case, tank. The Israelis have one called the Trophy that's probably the most well-known at this point. It can be effective. It's definitely not a 100% solution, and it doesn't make the vehicle invincible, but it looks like this same APS that was used a couple days ago in the same direction where Phoenix went after those vehicles may have been used here. So here you can hear the Russian assessment that it was useless, that it didn't work. Maxim Klishnikov, another Russian war correspondent, said, quote, another commander sacrificed equipment from the 90th Tank Division as well as soldiers from the 8th and 41st Army to the drones. And this is happening in the 5th year of the war, despite the fact that everyone should be aware of the threat of a drone wall. Until those who give the orders for such attacks are held accountable, but do not lead them themselves, this meat grinder will not end. He says Germans in the war, talking about World War II, avoided such meat assaults, using the same tactics that the Ukrainian armed forces are using now. So it is possible to learn and to abandon the strategy in the spirit of human waves. So real quick, that terminology, human waves, meat assaults, meat grinders, all of that has been utilized by Russia for a while. Like this isn't just, we certainly have this commentary used on the Ukrainian side to describe these Russian assaults, but I just want to stress like the terminology of meat assault, meat grinder, suicide mission, one-way trip, you're getting that from Russian sources as well. Like they can see what is happening on the battlefield when these troops are sent out into the open, or in this case, kind of in the open with armored vehicles, but they're spotted and destroyed so far away from actually entering into Ukrainian territory, which raises the question, why are they doing this? And it's a surprising little stretch here because it's been a while since we've seen any number of armored vehicles used in a concerted assault by Russia. They've really gone the route of infiltration tactics over the course of the last year plus at this point because armored vehicles, as you can see in this video, are getting spotted and destroyed so far back from the front. So what Russia turned to were these infiltration tactics of small groups, sometimes 3, sometimes 2, often 1 Russian soldier given a couple checkpoints that they have to move through. And they're moving through Russian-held territory, moving into the gray zone, the contested area that sometimes can be 10 to 20 kilometers wide, hiding in dugouts, hiding in basements, hiding in trench lines with other Russians sometimes, getting resupplied by drones, and then, ideally, from their perspective, moving into Ukrainian-occupied territory, finding gaps in the line that can later be exploited. That is very costly, very slow, but it's been pretty effective at pushing the Ukrainian lines back. All of a sudden, in the last week, we've seen armored assaults. The first stop by Phoenix a couple days ago, now this one stopped by Azov. 3 reasons kind of come to mind as to why this might be the case. The first is the new technology. So we've seen a number of Russian accounts in recent days point to both of these events and saying, this is the new APS, again, active protection system. Ukrainian military news site Militarny talked about this. I'm sure I got that one wrong, by the way. They said, quote, the first publicly documented deployment of Russian T-72B3A tanks equipped with the Arena M active protection system, or APS, upgraded to defend against FPV drones, ended in failure. I mean, the idea that this would be the test, like it's hard to fathom that some piece of equipment gets tested in a live fire environment where 150 soldiers are killed. Even from Russia, I feel like we haven't really seen that hardly at all. You have to imagine that it would be tested behind the lines with a wide array of drones. Like, yes, Ukraine and Russia have different drone capabilities and technologies, but Russia has more than enough capability to test this against FPV drones before throwing it into not just a sector of the front, but arguably the most defended sector of the front with some of the most lethal and well-equipped Ukrainian units on the other side. Seems like a suicide mission. I mean, this is why the Russian milbloggers are so upset at what they're seeing here. So maybe it was a test of the APS. I think that's probably one part of it. But of course, a big story here is it doesn't look like that Russian technology is yet ready to mitigate the effects of mass FPV drones in the battlefield. I do want to stress that we only have probably 6 to 7 minutes of footage from this entire 4-hour engagement, plus another day from Phoenix. We haven't seen the Russian side. So it is entirely possible. I want to leave this open for the possibility that maybe those APSs worked and they, shot down 5, 10, 20 Ukrainian drones before the vehicles were finally disabled and destroyed. Maybe. We have no evidence to support that. Just want to stress that all we have right now are Ukrainian drones destroying those vehicles. The second one here was brought up by Clement Molin, an analyst over on X, does an excellent job. I'll have his account linked in the description below. He said, why did Russia launch a mechanized assault here? He said the main reason is how difficult it is to get there. We've seen recent videos of an impressive number of logistical and assault unarmored vehicles destroyed on roads leading to this area. This is one of the deadliest areas, with older Ukrainian fortifications complicating any movement. Launching mechanized assault helps to bring hundreds of men closer to the front. Even if 150 die and 150 manage to reach those positions, all of them will be able to assault and infiltrate further in the coming weeks. I think that's a possibility. It's pretty dark when you think about it, right? If they're saying in this case we need 150 people in this general direction and they're not there now and they're suffering 50% losses to get there, that's wild. Could you imagine that? Just like assuming 50% losses to push these guys forward? I think that's a possibility, but it probably plays a little bit, not just that they're trying to get those guys forward, but I think the third reason here is more in line with reality, or more encompasses kind of what we're seeing here, and it's that the Russian military continues to run on lies. These false reports being sent up, at some point that debt builds, and we've seen that in a couple areas of the front where drastic measures all of a sudden are required. It's possible that's what we're seeing here, which is why a large assault of, say, 300 with 50% casualty rate is understandable from the Russian side, as crazy as to say that. Now, this one was something I was thinking of in recent days, but came across an analysis on X and thought it was better to share what somebody actually said at the time rather than just, no, I thought that. I promise I thought it at the time. Metayid, UA, their account linked also in the description below, said, why mechanized assaults here and now? Because the old Ukrainian fortifications and relentless drone work on logistics have turned every foot approach into a death march. 5 to 10 kilometers of open road under FPV and artillery fire after staging in ruined villages. Command cannot get accurate pictures. Their maps count any dead infantrymen who once stepped on ground as controlled territory. That lie cost them hundreds of men per attempt just to maintain the illusion upstairs. We have seen that a lot across the front, where again, this infiltration tactic opens the door for a Russian soldier to wave a flag, be captured by a drone's camera, and say, look, we definitely have soldiers in that area. And what we have not seen from the Russian side is a willingness to say, now we have lost that area, or that was one soldier and he was killed, so we don't actually control it. So what that means is, as that goes up the chain of command, we've talked in recent videos how some Russian milbloggers say there are different maps on the wall. One map is what's being reported up the chain of command, and the other map is what they use for planning operations. And the one up the chain of command can be off 5, 10, 20 kilometers in certain areas, because that one soldier that went forward, that is now forever Russian territory. Even if it's one guy 10 kilometers behind the front line, he's killed. Now they have to find a way to slowly make that up, and it costs a lot of men as they do it. I think that is probably at least a large component of what we're seeing with these relatively chaotic, desperate, if you will, armored assaults in recent days. But of course, as mentioned, every one of these sources, as well as the source videos, will be linked in the description below. But that's all we got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.